Americans for Fair Taxation presents the Weekly Chairman's Report, written by Steve Hayes, president of Americans for Fair Taxation, and recorded by Bob Paxton, a volunteer with the Florida FAIRtax Educational Association. And now, this week's Chairman's Report.
Hello, I'm Bob Paxton with the AFFT Chairman's Report for Friday, August 22nd, 2025. Misrepresenting Adam Smith. That's the name of a Substack article written by Dr. David Friedman. Dr. Friedman's impressive resume is contained at his webpage. Adam Smith, an 18th century Scottish economist and philosopher, is often called the father of modern economics. His best-known work is The Wealth of Nations. Here are some of Dr. Friedman's statements concerning Adam Smith. From time to time, I see or hear claims that Adam Smith favored a progressive income tax. One passage from The Wealth of Nations that I've seen offered in support of this claim says, "The subjects of every state ought to contribute towards the support of the government, as nearly as possible, in proportion to their respective abilities, that is, in proportion to the revenue which they respectively enjoy under the protection of the state." Now, taxation in proportion to revenue is not progressive taxation, but proportional taxation. In modern terminology, a flat tax. Now, the quote not only is not evidence for the claim, it's actually evidence against it. Important evidence, since it's the first of the maxims with which Smith introduces his discussion of taxes. Not only is Smith not endorsing a progressive income tax, he's not endorsing any sort of income tax, well, with one exception. Reading further into the passage, he successfully rejects taxes on income from capital, taxes on wages, and taxes on the income of professionals. The only income he approves of taxing is the income of government officials. Now, what he is arguing for is not a tax on income, but a system of taxation whose effect is proportional to income. Unlike most modern commenters, he realizes that determining who bears the cost of a tax is not as simple as seeing who hands over the money. In conclusion, Dr. Friedman, the fair tax is a proportional tax. Every consumer in the United States will pay federal taxes in direct proportion to what they spend on new retail goods and services, and not on their income. The one difference is that the fair tax, through the family allowance called the prebate, ensures that no person with a valid Social Security number pays the fair tax on their purchases up to the poverty level for their family size. In other words, under the fair tax, everyone is allowed to purchase their basic necessities tax-free. While people are beginning to realize the cost of federal regulation, for the most part, the most insidious federal regulation that affects all businesses is the Internal Revenue Code. The fair tax frees American businesses, and each of us individually, from the tyranny of the income tax. The income tax must go if we're going to make America great again. Now, if there's an income tax, any changes to it are only permanent until there's a new president whose party controls Congress. A recent Quantus Insights poll showed that the majority of Republicans, Democrats, and Independents are all in favor of eliminating the income tax. There is an alternative that eliminates the burden on individual citizens entirely and reduces the burdens on businesses by over 90%. This alternative is the fair tax, a simple, progressive national retail sales tax on the retail purchases of new goods and services. In addition to removing the compliance burden on Americans, the fair tax also eliminates income taxes on Social Security permanently, eliminates income taxes on tips permanently, eliminates income taxes on overtime permanently. It taxes imports and provides tax credits to U.S. exporters like all of our trading partners do. The fair tax eliminates the need for most tariffs, brings jobs back to the United States, eliminates federal taxes up to the poverty level, and requires no tax returns for individuals. The fair tax clearly shows the federal taxes that are currently hidden in the prices of the goods we purchase, creates greater economic growth, brings in capital that allows productivity increases and higher wages. It eliminates lobbyists and politicians from selling tax benefits that harm the rest of us. But most of all, the fair tax eliminates the Internal Revenue Service. We need to move now and put a stake in the heart of the income tax and the IRS so that they cannot be easily resurrected by a subsequent administration. Now, many of you have labored tirelessly for freedom from the federal income tax and the IRS. You deserve a great deal of credit for your efforts to educate the American people on the need to fund the American government in a way that's good for America and that returns freedom to the American people. It's imperative, though, that we don't replace the current income tax and the IRS with an alternative system that can still be manipulated by the ruling elite. We must let Congress and the President know that the best way to replace the income tax and the IRS is with the fair tax. Now, make no mistake about it. The fair tax is a grave threat to the ruling elites. It will strip them of their power and their ability to control us through the tax system. Their opposition to the fair tax will be fierce and unrelenting, and don't think for an instant they won't use half-truths, deception, and downright lies in their desperate attempt to hang on to their power. However, with the support of this president, we can finally eliminate the income tax and the IRS. Now, of course, the best course of action is not only to repeal the income tax and abolish the IRS, but to repeal the 16th Amendment as well, so that no future administration can ever shackle the American people with an income tax again. We must come together and ensure that real tax reform, the fair tax, is not subverted by the elites in D.C. This will take the diligent efforts from all of us. We need your financial assistance, and we need your grassroots assistance. Now, if you have contacts that will allow us to get more information about the fair tax to President Trump, please let us know. Also, please email us at info@fairtax.org, and we'll give you some options on how you can best help us. At a minimum, please call your congressional representative and ask if he or she supports the fair tax. If so, thank him or her for their support and suggest they become a co-sponsor of H.R. 25 if they're not one already. If not, ask why not. Now, if your representative claims to be unfamiliar with the fair tax, offer to have someone come to their office and explain it to them. The solution: pass the fair tax. Now, why would D.C. pass the fair tax and give up an almost unlimited source of donations? Well, they won't, at least not voluntarily. The only way they will is if the rest of us demand it. Isn't it time to end this ludicrous tax collection system and the IRS along with it? Help bring about real tax reform and stop future IRS abuses. By contributing, or actually investing, $10.40 a month, you help provide a financial base to Americans for fair taxation. Now, if you can make larger contributions/investments, these will be used not for salaries, as we're all volunteers, but for the needed updates to our economic studies, which will be vital for all future years. Please go to FAIRtax.org to invest in AFFT and help us pass the fair tax. It's an investment in your and your family's future.
This has been the Weekly Chairman's Report, written by Steve Hayes, President of Americans for Fair Taxation. Check back every week for news and information about the fair tax, and learn why the fair tax should replace our antiquated federal income tax system. If you'd like to receive a copy of the Chairman's Report in your inbox every week, sign up at FAIRtax.org.